Hey, finance students, we are working on practice problems 10-2. Here we're looking at calculating the growth rate of an asset. Now, sometimes growth rates are not necessarily given to you, but you have other data, other information that you can look up on financial statements where you can figure out what the expected growth rate is for a stock. So one of the things you can do that is you can use the ROE formula that we have in order to find the growth rate. We can have our retention rate and multiply that times our rate of return, and that'll give us our growth rate. So for example here, let's do the first one. Assume the return on equity for Paloma is 15%, so ROE, return on equity there, is given as 15%, and Paloma retains 40% of its profits. What would we expect the common stockholders' investment in the firm and its value of the stock price to increase or grow by? In essence, it's asking what is the growth rate for Paloma. So to find that, it's very simple. We have our retention rate. They're retaining 40% of its profits, and we know it's ROE or it's K. Another thing that you can substitute for the return on a stock, return on equity is 15%. So it's very simply the growth rate is just your retention rate times your growth rate. That's what we have. So the growth rate for Paloma is expected to be about 6% a year that we see. But what if you're not given the retention rate? Is there a way to find the growth rate with that? Well, let's look at the next one. Fiat Incorporated has a current return on equity of 12.2%. So I want to make sure that we are clear. This is ROE, which can be substituted for K, but not always. 12.2%. They typically paid out 65% of their earnings. So their payout rate is actually 65%. Well, there's two options that you have with your retained earnings. You either keep them, you retain them, or you pay them out. With your profits or your net income. You either keep them, you retain them, or you pay them out in terms of dividends. So if your payout rate is 65%, then that means the retention rate has to be 35% because the two of them added together equal 100% of a company's earnings. So now that we have payout rate of 65, that gives us retention rate of 35%. Our ROE is 12.2. We can calculate our growth rate by taking our retention rate and multiply that times our ROE, and we have a growth rate of 4.27%. And that is how we can calculate growth rate using